Sunrise Extra on a Friday. So today our topic is a bit more serious than it was yesterday. Yesterday, President Biden made a national television address, 2 o'clock our time yesterday, and it's gotten everybody talking. The Republican National Committee now threatening to sue the White House administration over it. So here's the deal, and I don't know the timelines of this, and I should know, but every company in the United States that has over 100 employees will now be mandated to either be vaccinated by, I am guessing, some certain date, or you have to get the nasal swab test every week.
Yeah, weekly tests.
Also, most federal workers will now have to be vaccinated, but there is no testing option for them. And what was the final one?
Does it have to do with the booster shots?
Yes, booster shots for some, mostly immunocompromised people and elderly folks will be available starting September 20th. Good memory.
Which is 10 days from now, so really quick.
Yeah, pretty soon, which is causing a lot of controversy in and of itself because, you know, poorer countries who haven't gotten the vaccine are saying, let's, you know, give us the shots before you guys take a third one.
Right.
So we put this poll up this morning on KGW Sunrise. We've gotten over almost 500 votes so far, and here's the breakdown. 70-30. Do you guys agree with the national vaccine mandates for larger companies, over 100 employees? 70% of you saying yes. And you know, on these typical questions, we get a lot of responses either way. But we got some really, I thought, super thoughtful
Beyond
ones.
the poll.
Yes.
Actual comments.
Mike Nicholas said he absolutely agrees. We are at 700,000 dead Americans nationwide and growing. It's a matter of public health. Here we go. This person saying, I'm pretty damn liberal and left-leaning, but even I think this is government overreach. I do wish more folks would get the vaccine, but not like this. Now here is the other side of the coin, which I think is fascinating. I am right-leaning, and I think this is great. If we do not get this under control, we will lose our kids' school year again and lots of other stuff. This is the right answer. Don't you think that's fascinating?
Well, yeah, with the fact that we heard from two viewers almost back to back there
And
on
they
the
have
KGW.
opposite-
Was that the Twitter page or the Facebook page?
Twitter.
On our Twitter page, and it's the left-leaning who says this is too much,
overreach.
and the right-leaning who says I'm on board with this plan. You know, the quote that we had from the president from yesterday's address that I think is going to ring in a lot of people's ears is the part where he says, this is no longer a matter of personal choice or freedom. And I think that's, you know, people hear that, it's like, no, it's still, you know, the people who are not in favor of having this mandated believe that, you know, it still should be a matter of choice. And he said, no, it's no longer, it's public health and public safety.
Yeah, it's to help other people. So I thought that was pretty fascinating, those comments. We want to know what you guys think. Jennifer Taft, good morning to you, one of our most loyal KGW viewers. She says that press conference was a joke, and I'm a Democrat. The executive order will just stir the angry pro-cheap available. The booster for immunocompromised has already been out, FYI. She got hers. The 6-point plan is too little too late, except for the testing.
Well, you said it's expected that somewhere, somehow, this will end up in the courts. Is that a fair statement that I think many Americans?
Yes, the Republican National Committee has said it will sue over this, saying...
and if it's not them, somebody else, I would assume,
You know, I do think that it's one of those things where the more, like, you know, with your kids, the more you tell them you can't do something or they must do something, the less likely they are to want to do it or to actually go out and act and do it. And I agree that, you know, it really shouldn't come down to, you know, forcing adults, like basically pulling them in and forcing them to get this done. It has gotten to that point. It reminds me, though, something this week that was brought to my attention. I haven't read the book yet, so I can't speak all too much about it, but I know the idea behind it. I don't know if any of our viewers have heard of this book called Think Again by Adam Grant. And basically, the idea of the book is they're studying people who are on complete opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to various things, including vaccines. And it was written before COVID came out, but it was just talking about people who are against the idea of being vaccinated in general versus people who are. It also talked about, it broke it down even to at the sports level. Red Sox fans versus Yankee fans. Red Sox fans think they're the best in the world, and Yankees fans suck. That's like right from the book, and vice versa. You know, Yankees fans think that Red Sox fans are the worst in the world. The book goes after and explains, why is this? how did we get to this point where we're completely on the opposite ends of a spectrum on issues like this?
No, wait a second. Have you read this book?
No, I haven't yet. But I got the synopsis.
Because so many people don't. The New York Yankees, but continue.
But people always ask, like, how do we get here, or they want to know why. Why do you not want to be vaccinated?
Yeah.
And you don't really get too far by asking people that question. We have to go back and go back to the very beginnings and talk about, how did we get to this spot? And what you realize, or what you find out, I guess they realize through this book, is that we usually start out on common ground. And if we can get back to that common ground, you start to see the other side of the coin. You're not going to flip everybody. But the book says that they were able, in one situation, it was, I forget the country, but it was a community that was 100% we're not getting vaccinated for anything. Measles, mumps, smallpox, polio, you name it. They were completely against it. And they did turn people's opinions on vaccinations in general. I think, ended up getting 70% of that community vaccinated for those things, when before none of them were getting vaccinated.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to set up for, with the companies over 100 employees, either you get, it's good there's a testing option. So it's not forcing you to get a vaccine, but it's going to make it surely pretty annoying every day, every Monday when you come to work and you got to get that thing up your nose. But if you don't want the vaccine, you don't have to have it. But I think it's going to open up a lot of, we're already seeing, a group of Oregon firefighters and state troopers who have sued Kate Brown, and there's surely going to be over the vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. And there's going to be more suits against, these individual governors who are doing this. And I think it's going to open it up now for companies, lawsuits against them.
A couple more comments. Paul Anderson. And a lot of these, I think for the most part of these comments, we've all heard these opinions at some point, right? This has become a topic that just keeps going and going. Paul Anderson says mandating a vaccine for a virus that's 99.7% survivable is complete stupidity. And then Jennifer Taft adds, I'm pro-mandate, but I think this will cause violence, sadly. We've seen the escalation. Talking about the polarization that some Americans have on the issue.
Mm-hmm. And early on in the pandemic, like when we first had to wear masks, I remember we talked to a psychologist, or this was a national story or something, but it was the psychology of America and freedom and liberty, that ingrains in you freedom of choice and not being, I don't like to be told what to do, because we're in America and it's a free country, and
people love throwing that around.
And yes, and you grow up, really believing in that as rightly as you should. And so it's hard for us. It's easier for other countries, government, to say, okay, you guys are doing this, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what we got to do now.
Well, Australia's been in the news lately for some of the mandates that they've put on their citizens. Now that I say that, I can't think of anything directly, but having to do with the coronavirus itself. Mm-hmm. Brenda Bless Russell. It's a matter of choice. The more folks are forced, the more they won't do it. Drew touched on that. Adults are not children needing to be forced. And again, that's exactly what you guys were just talking about. I think there's the forced, the being told to do something.
Mm-hmm. If we agree on that, if we agree that forcing people to do something, in this case, getting a shot or getting tested every week, if we agree that's not the way to turn people's views, and what is the way then? I mean, how do you get, if the goal is to get more people vaccinated because the scientists tell us that that's the way we're going to end COVID, or get ahead of it anyways, then how do you convince people who are against getting vaccinated? How do you convince them to get vaccinated?
Well, I think the president.
I do agree that telling them to do it is going to backfire.
Honestly, it has to be the brutal way of someone close to them gets sick, and then it becomes
well, you definitely can't plan that or schedule that.
No, but I mean, I think that experience is the most powerful kind of, example there is. And I mean, it's kind of like wearing seatbelts. If it's, it certainly doesn't mean you're not going to get in a car crash, but it is a preventative measure for you to maybe live or not be seriously hurt. And if you have a friend that gets in a car crash that wasn't wearing their seatbelt, you're like, oh, that's a lesson I can take away from something like this. But
well, I mean, and that goes along the lines. I mean, obviously, hundreds of thousands, what is it, 700,000 Americans have died now? Do you know the number off the top of your head?
I want to say 800,000, but we'll look it up real quick.
We've done the stories of the hospitals, ICUs being doubled up in rooms. But then you also have the reality with this virus that there are still many, 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 many Americans that either don't know anybody that's gotten this virus, or they know one or two that were sick for literally 4 or 5 days. So it hasn't really, to your point, it hasn't really touched them yet. And I think, I mean, when something does touch you, we can't predict how somebody's going to react to that, but it certainly makes you reset your thought process. There's no doubt about that.
I thought it was interesting. Howard Stern came out the other day, just furious on his, Sirius satellite radio show, with a lot of other radio commenters who were more conservative and were, vehemently against the vaccine, who have since died of COVID. And he's saying, enough of this, enough of these personal freedom of choices. This is about other people around you, and certainly for healthcare workers, that mandate, I think, makes sense.
But with that said, there are healthcare workers that do not want to be forced to get the vaccine.
Yeah, the videos from people, I mean, I see like every day some news article with a video of a patient in the hospital saying, I regret, I should have got the vaccine, and they died like the next day. I mean, almost every day I see a video of something like that, which is powerful.
Rod, you were right on the money when you said between 600,000 and 700,000 deaths so far. In America, 656,000. So right in the middle, 656,000 COVID deaths in America.
So Renee Robertson, I remember she's our friend that goes back and forth from Panama. She says, I'm flying back to Panama today and no longer have to have proof of negative COVID test to return, but I do have to show my Vax card, Renee adds.
Jim Karras, good morning to you. Thank you for weighing in. He says he uses the phrase, my body, my choice. This is just a way to make Big Pharma richer. Mark my words, it won't just be the initial shots and one booster. Once you get the initial shot, you'll have to have a booster every 6 months, making Big Pharma richer.
I use the phrase, my body, my mess. But go on.
Have you guys heard, I'm sure you've heard other people say what I'm about to share from Rhonda.
It's Rhonda, yeah.
She says the non-vaccinated people shouldn't be allowed to go to the hospital. And I brought that idea up to my sister, who's a nurse in New Jersey, and she, she hasn't taken, I mean, I've known her for 40 years, right? She's 50, I'm 47. She's not taken many stands on anything, but she is pretty passionate when it comes now to people getting the vaccine. Like, she was on like, hey, have you gotten yours yet? When she knew that I was eligible. Have you gotten your kids vaccinated yet? And when we hadn't gotten them vaccinated like right away, when 12 and plus were eligible, she's like, what are you waiting for? And anyways, I asked her about this. I said, so what if you absolutely believe, no doubt about it, that people should be getting the vaccine, no questions asked? I said, how do you feel about this idea that people are suggesting, that if you're not vaccinated, we may not have room for you at the hospital? And she said, that doesn't work that way.
Right.
It just doesn't. She goes, we can't start judging people and deciding, oh, how did you get that gunshot wound? Oh, you were involved in a drug deal?
Or you
Too bad.
smoked all your life, or you ate terrible and you're obese, and, like, we're not going to help your...
You show up, we care for you. That's the bottom line.
Right.
It's horrible for me to say this, but I've often thought this, and I don't think I'm alone, but maybe I am. You hear somebody who's 65 years old and they've got lung cancer, and the first thing you want to know is, were they a smoker?
Right.
And if the answer is they smoked all their life, and this is horrible of me to think this, but I think, well, they knew that really increased their chances, and now,
I guess you certainly don't feel as bad for someone who dies that
it's kind of a similar
than someone who dies from an accident.
But in my mind, that's a similar thought to this vaccine thing. We still let people in, we still treat them for lung cancer.
Yes.
Right.
And interestingly enough, we had this story, I think Catherine did it. We've been talking about in Idaho, in northern Idaho, they're in this crisis mode in hospitals where if you come in and you're near death from almost anything, car crash, COVID, and you're likely to die, they're going to not prioritize you, and they're going to take somebody who has a better chance of survival or has better odds, as they say. That's only in the northern part of the state because it's so full of COVID. Oregon doesn't have these crisis standards in hospitals. We actually got rid of it because they were saying it was discriminatory, that you can't turn away somebody for...
Or you can't give priority to someone just because you think they're likely to die.
Right. So I thought that was interesting of the state.
Deborah Zimmer says, I had COVID and I have antibodies far stronger than vaccine. I've heard that's true. I've heard multiple reports of that. Stop judging people for reasons why they are not vaccinated. Some also have medical conditions they can't get it. And I do want to highlight, I don't think judging people is ever the best way to go.
Right.
And I don't like that's become one of the highlights of what we're talking about right now, is just judging people for their decisions that they are making. And I just think it would be easier to have a discussion and maybe get some reasonable results if we could somehow do it without judging people. That's a part of the equation I wish wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's like you said, it has to hit home, and I've never, to that point, I've never really, I've never judged people one way or the other, because to be quite honest, at the beginning of this, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be vaccinated. You know, like I'm very much a believer in, hey, I have a choice to do these things. No one should make me do them. Ultimately, I did, and one of the reasons I wanted to get vaccinated was so that I could keep going about my life the way I want to go about my life, which was come to work. I knew that I was not going to be in the studio with you all every day if I wasn't vaccinated. That I'd have to wear a mask, and that makes doing a live newscast with other newscasters difficult if you're wearing a mask. So that was part of the play. I wanted to get back to my life, at least part of it. And now I think the same thing for my kids. It's like, man, I just wish they could go to school without the masks. It's crazy to me that they have to participate in gym class in some cases, not when they're running around, but sometimes in gym they're still wearing the mask. And it's like, how do we get back to where we're living our lives again? Yeah. And to me, I think okay, it seems to me like vaccination is the road. That's why I've sort of changed my opinion on it. I'm not judging other people for why they're still not doing it, but I know that that's kind of why I changed my own opinion. Now, I guess I liked my life before enough to where I want to get back to it.
My wife and I have spoke in person to a microbiologist that works in Washington State, who said, and there's, in my opinion, some evidence of this, said, bottom line is, you can make the case no matter what we do or don't do, this virus is going to take a good 3 years to work itself through our population and maybe more. He said that's the way these viruses typically do. And having said that, if you go back and you look at the stats of states that really went extreme one way with mandates and states that didn't, in many cases, or at least in some cases, there's not really that much of a difference in the outcome if you really get into the numbers of how many people got sick, how many people died, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we're not going to know until we're all through this. But I imagine there's some logic truth to the fact that this virus is going to take its, the normal, I don't know if normal is the best word, but the cycle that viruses take to get through a population to achieve the immunity that's necessary, be it naturally or be it through vaccines or be it through whatever.
Yeah, I think it's clear it's going to be with us forever now,
well, I mean, right, I mean, we had, it's not the first, it's not the first pandemic that our country has faced, and many others have happened, and they were with us for a few years, and now they're pretty much gone. I mean, I would like to think this is going to be the same case, that it's going to take its natural course to get out of here.
Herd immunity works. Measles, polio, all that stuff, chicken pox.
I was trying to scour through I know we're running out of time. I was going through some of the comments to see if there was one that I thought might be a good one to end on. But I'll say that for the most part, like the rest of these discussions, it's pretty divided, and I don't want to end on one side of the coin and not the other. Yeah. But we could probably throw up our poll one final time this morning. It all started by asking you the question in regards to President Biden's vaccine mandate. Do you agree with the national vaccine mandate for larger companies, that is, having all employees vaccinated, companies larger than 100 employees? Did I say it the right way? Maybe I should put it this way. If your company has 100 or more people, they're requiring you to get your employees vaccinated. 70% of you say, yes, I am on board. The comments we're seeing right now on the Sunrise Extra platform here on Facebook suggest that it is definitely a more divided camp than that 70-30 our poll suggests. So we do thank you, regardless of your opinion, for weighing in, for sharing your thoughts, for joining us on Sunrise Extra this morning. That does it for the week.
Let's wish everybody good health. That's the most important thing. Good health to all of you.